All right, we are good to go. Yep, make sure those cameras. Awesome. I think these are kind of in the way. I kind of just wanted to have them up here for presentation purposes, but they're kind of in the way now. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive into this. I'm going to get this out of the way. That's more better. And make sure that I am. Make sure we're good on Facebook. Yeah, we're good. Bueno. And just has people are just watching me do this. They're probably so bored right now, or they're confused. Hopefully they caught the note and saw that Ben's on, teaching us some cool stuff. This thing's gonna get on my nerves being in the way. Native funk. Sorry. This isn't any kind of like super professional thing. It's literally just us hanging out, drinking beer, and just talking about what you do.
Sure.
We're just gonna have a good time.
All right.
Anyways, let me adjust this camera. I like better when it's maybe that one. No, there's a beer can down there. That'll do. Anyways, thank you for coming on. If you guys don't know him, which if any of you are Albany natives, thank you. Oh, it looks so much better. If any of you are Albany natives, you guys know Ben. You guys have been out there to you have multiple shows, correct?
Well, we just got finished
At
with
Sheol.
Yeah, there's events going on all year long. The ones I'm responsible for is I put on the Native American Festival in April, the Frontier Festival in January, and the Traditional Skills Gathering in December.
Man, you stay busy. Stay busy out there. And that's not even to mention all the other things that he gets into, like the event that you got going on tomorrow at Stone Mountain, right?
Yeah, we'll be up at Stone Mountain Powwow this weekend, doing demos for the public up there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
All right. So if any of you that don't know who he is, he has all kinds of primitive skills, and he's been teaching it how long?
Well, I started teaching back in the 80s. I started practicing in the 60s.
A hot ass minute. For a long time he's been doing this. I'm going to dive into a beer. I think it makes conversation kind of work a little bit better when we're chugging on some beer. Is there a style you like?
You called You called a porter out earlier.
You want to go right to the porter, huh? All right, we'll run it. Here, I'll make that one mine. Yeah. Cool. If I'd known you like porters, we would have made this a whole stout night.
Stouts are wonderful.
Stouts and porter. Oh, I can smell that one. You kind of just go halvesies on it. This is what, Holy City is the name of the... I gave you too much. I guess it's too late now. Is that Holy City Brewing? It's the Pluff Mud Porter. Brewed and canned at Holy City Brewing in North Carolina.
North Carolina?
No, sorry. North Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
Somebody was going to fight me on that one. Yeah, it's in the beer can. If you guys want to catch a gander of that. Good stuff. We'll go back to that. Pluff Mud. It is at 5.5%. That's not too bad for a porter. Oh, I got the bottom of it. I saw some floaties in it. Sometimes that happens. Especially with, a lot of times it happens with sours, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, you get lots of like the fermented, like the stuff floating in the bottom of it. I'm all right with it though. I know it's good stuff. All right. So, aside from the festivals and stuff, we'll get back to that later. So you've been doing this since the 60s.
Well, keep in mind,
teaching since the 60s.
No, been teaching since the 80s. I chipped my first arrowhead in '67.
67.
And I really didn't know what I was doing. I was 12 years old. I was a kid that the family went on a vacation up into the mountains, and one of the days we were in Cherokee, and like everybody, we went through all the little tourist shops, and there was an arrowhead making kit.
Is that your original arrowhead?
And I tugged on my daddy's shirt, and I said, I won't ask for anything else from this trip if you'll get me that. So he did. And it came with these two cowbone tools.
Those are the actual ones?
These are the tools in 1967.
How do people hold on to stuff for so long? I don't get it.
The reason I held on to them is they are incredibly great opportunity to explain what doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
Because what they did was they gave you a box of what today I refer to as debitage. Debitage are waste flakes. You got a large chunk of material and you're hitting it with a hammer stone, and they're really, really thin. In fact, they're so thin that you basically trying to make something from it is just going to break. But the instructions were you put it like that and you just twist it. And yes, that crumbles and crushes the edge. And there, if you do it enough, you might be able to shape it. But if you get to a thick spot, it doesn't work.
Right.
And so I'd find myself pressing on it, and like in the technique called pressure flaking. And keep in mind, as a 12-year-old kid, you have no leverage with that little tiny thing right there, and you don't have strength. Coordination isn't good. And so I graduated from using that to a 16-penny nail.
16-penny nail?
A 16-penny nail, which has a head on it, like all nails do.
Right.
Okay. Well, that was a long, long time ago, because I'm 64. But I can tell you that the head of the 16-penny nail will put a blister about that big around in the middle of your palm, right there. So that fall, my mom brought out the big bowl of nuts to crack, and there was nutcrackers and 2 nut picks. My mama lived to be 98 years old. She never knew what happened to her nut picks because they replaced 16-penny nails because they didn't have heads on them. Those were my pressure flakers. I didn't know what I was doing. If I did something right, I didn't understand why it was right. If I did something wrong, I didn't understand.
There's nobody around really to show you that kind of stuff.
That's right. And I didn't run into anyone else doing any of this stuff until I was 31 years old. My wife has the third piece of pottery I ever made when I was 14 years old in 1969. I literally went to the bank of the creek behind the house, dug the clay out, made the pot. It's never been fired. I didn't know anything about vitrification of clay. I just made a pot. And it's just dried clay. The only reason this one survived is it was the thickest one I made. All my really thin ones, they just broke because they were just dried clay. They had never been fired.
So, you know Kirby? Yeah, no, I figured if I had mentioned he's a potter. He's been doing pottery.
Oh, Kirby, yes, the potter.
Yeah.
He was out at Chiatamacalea Arts and Crafts Show.
Yeah, you mentioned
weekend.
pottery. I didn't know you did pottery, but I guess that works into the whole primitive skills thing.
Yeah. Kirby throws his pots on a wheel and does just absolutely beautiful work. I don't use a wheel. I do it all by hand.
Yeah, you do it old school.
Yep.
Slap it on there.
Usually with rolls.
I think Kirby was actually the first person that we interviewed, honestly.
Okay.
He comes into Mellow pretty often.
Yeah.
And just kind of hangs out. And he brought us all like little small, little tiny pots. He chose Mellow as his like location. Apparently, he does it every year. And he makes tiny little individual pots. For everybody.
Well, neat.
So I didn't even know he did that. And we came up with this show and
very cool.
Invited him on. And for guys that don't know what this show is, and if this is your first time on, I'm simulcasting to multiple different things. So Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. Basically, I just find skilled people locally, and I just like to hear about what they do. Maybe have a brew with them and just kind of talk about what they do. I'm interested in it. Maybe bring what they do to light, because I know there's a lot of you guys who know who Ben is, but there are some out there who don't, who are local. I mean, I know that personally. I was mentioning at work, and they were like, who? Ben? Native Festival? I was like, yes, it's a thing. Like, don't know anything about it. I guess anybody who's into that kind of stuff probably knows who you are.
Maybe.
And if they don't, you're going to learn today. What are you displaying here? Like,
Well,
these are ones that you've made?
Yeah, everything that I brought are things that I made myself. And one of the areas of pride that I have is I use the same tools and techniques that the Native Americans and our ancestors over in Europe or Asia or wherever someone might be from, same tools and techniques that they did as well, which is mainly hammerstone and deer antler. And, if someone sees a frame like this, let me get that out of your way there. They say, oh, my gosh, look at all the arrowheads. Well, basically, there's not really a true arrowhead in that entire frame.
Right.
None of those would be arrowheads. The styles that are replicated here are styles that date back from 9,000 years ago to maybe about 3,000 years ago. And bow and arrows only been around for like 1,500 years.
One of those would be similar to an arrowhead?
The point that's on that arrow right there
Right.
is what the people in the southeast were using when the first Europeans got here. This was used for deer, bear, and to kill people.
Yeah.
And to prove a point, when the Georgia dropped their 7/8 inch minimum width for broadheads for deer, I started hunting with these little small guys. A double lung shot, 35 yards, go pick up your deer. It gets the job done.
Right. So if these aren't arrowheads, what are they considered as?
Well, they would be the points for atlatl spears, or the archaeologists, we usually refer to them as darts. Think about an arrow as being 3 times longer, 5 to 6 foot long.
Right.
7 foot long, still has feathers on it, but now rather than throwing this thing, rather than shooting it with a bow, they're using a tool called an atlatl. And I didn't bring that.
The one where you have the thing on the end of
That's right. It's a spear thrower. It's usually roughly about 2 foot long. There'll be a spur, a little hook on one end that
Right.
fits into the end of the shaft, and you're holding it over here, so it gives you an extension of the arm and that leverage of that extra amount that you can throw it much more powerful.
Those things are
So
deadly.
these would be knife blades or points for the atlatl darts.
I did not know that. And they're also different from one another. I guess they're based on region or based on
Region,
tribe.
time frame, and everything.
This one's got like a long sides on it. If anybody's
Yeah. It's a basal notch point, and those were being produced about 2,000, 2,500 years ago. Those are fairly common. You get some up into the late Archaic, not much into the Middle Archaic. And the Middle Archaic is more stem points, simple stem points, and but different styles for different time periods. You got to keep in mind some of the stuff goes back 14,000 years.
Right.
That's a long time. And the different people that spoke many different languages, so you did have different cultural aspects there, so styles change. When I was a kid, people liked to wear bell bottoms. I didn't, but most people did.
They're coming back, man. Don't give up on them.
They probably will. And you know what? You see that also in these point styles. You'll see a style point made that was being made 8,000 years ago, and then boom, 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, you see something very, very similar being made. So, yeah. They found them too.
So all these have different uses, or are they all just killing?
Basically either knife blades or some type of projectile point.
Yeah, because these are really huge. These
The big wide ones, I honestly believe that when they're really wide like that, they're used more for knife blades.
okay.
The wider it is, I don't care how sharp it is, the more difficult it is in penetration. And
Yeah.
penetration is everything, because these kill by cutting. And so if it doesn't penetrate deep enough, it only wounds the animal. And that's not what you want.
You want to go ahead and take that thing out?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I think it's awesome that you made all of these. These look like super legit, like something you would find in a museum or something.
They all work.
Oh yeah, I know. They do their job.
The stones displayed in this one case, and I just grabbed the first case I could find.
Just one of his many thousands of cases probably sitting around.
It has stones from different parts of the country. The really shiny materials, whether it's red and black or clear or solid black, these are obsidians, which is a volcanic glass from out west. There's also some kind of opaque black that are dacite, which is first cousin to obsidian, also from out west. These three right here are Navaculite out of Arkansas. This is our local chert right here out of the Flint River in downtown Albany. That's a rhyolite from North Carolina. And this is some mudstone algae, some silicified algae from down around Adel.
Yeah, that's awesome. That one definitely looks like a familiar stone we've seen around here. Now, you were telling me that there's a common misconception about like flint, like arrowheads being made out of flint, or when I first got here, and how most people think it's all made out of flint, and you know it's all silica, right? But you said it's
well, you know, the stones we call it the Flint River, and the original name is Thronatiska or Thronatasa, which is the Muskogee word for basically meaning place where flint's picked up. And keep in mind, the Europeans who were familiar with the cliffs of Dover in England,
right,
and Danish flint and whatnot, they understood flint because they used them in the flintlock rifles,
right,
and whatnot. And so over the years, everything got called flint, right? Whether, as the geologists refer to it today, well, it's a flint, a chert, and that's what we have locally is a chert. It's a silica that is formed in limestone. We've got lots of limestone. The silica precipitates into the limestone and is what this chert is produced from. Whereas your obsidians and dacites are actually volcanic. These others are sedimentary. So just different ways in which the stones are formed. But as long as they're mainly composed of silica, you can chip them. We can chip this glass right here.
just might. No, we won't. Actually, I bought these recently so I could get a friend to inscribe on her. Not inscribe, but
Engrave.
her dad owns an engraving company, so
Okay.
I was gonna get him to put me some cool stuff on these. I've already cleaned mine out somewhat. I drink it down and pour water in it to kind of like clear the palate. What did you think about that one?
It was nice and smooth.
Then
I
these-
like a dark beer, a porter, and stout. Those are my favorite.
So we'll finish with ambers, or we'll finish with maybe this one. That way, it's like a nice, good finish at the very end, and you're not stuck with something that you actually don't like, and that'll sit on the very end of your memory. Let's see. We've got an IPA. We've got a lager, groovable lager. This one is a blonde lager, but it's about the Claremont Lounge. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have not.
Supposedly it's a place where like, it's like it's a strip club where like strippers go to die, supposedly. So it's more of like a joke. You go there and there's like old lady strippers, and it's alive since 1965. That's their slogan. We're gonna run this one. I actually like this one. It's gonna be a blonde ale. Something a little on the lighter side. I like the label though. Beacon made this, and they do really good with their labels. It's either really minimalistic or, you know.
And where is Beacon from?
Beacon is from... I've had them on before. I'm having difficulty. Yeah, I got their page right here. Beacon is out of... It just says Georgia. I know it says it on here somewhere better. Anybody who's like a beer person who knows who Beacon is, they're probably like, fucking idiot. But, yeah, I don't see it on here, honestly. Which is weird.
I caught a quick taste while you were looking. It's good.
Oh, that's all good.
Yeah, it's good.
I don't mind that. Says she's blonde, she's crisp, and she'll get you doing high kicks and splits. Or she'll have you doing high kicks. This dry hop lager is crispy, satisfying, crushable. Enjoy drinking it as you crush your thirst. Of course, the can. I'm still trying to find, like, where the hell Beacon is from. It's a collaboration with the Claremont Lounge. I'll figure it out.
There's a Claremont Avenue in Atlanta.
I don't like that it just says it is from Georgia. This says Atlanta.
Well, that's spelled different though. The Claremont Avenue is C-L-A-I-R rather than C-L-E-R. Okay.
I'm trying to actually find some info on it. It's not too important. We'll get back to this. And if you guys actually want to see the can, it's got strippers on it. It's got one of them censored stripper. All right. So what are these things you have right here? There's just tons of stuff up here. I can tell it's all like organic.
Well, these are the tools in which I produce this. If I've got a large chunk of rock,
That is a big upgrade from these.
yes, yes it is,
They
and
use the same groove?
they're used differently.
Doesn't use the same groove method?
Nope, not at all. Hammer stones are simply something to actually strike the stone. You're putting a shock wave into the stone. So this flake right here was up against a big chunk of rock, and I hit it with the hammer stone. And if you look at it, you'll see a little bulb. The shock wave comes up and then it feathers out. And I don't know whether the camera can pick it up, but you can literally see the shock waves through the stone, just like waves through the water. If you dropped a pebble in the water, how it would expand out.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to pick it up.
But that is what, understanding how that shock wave goes through the stone helps you determine what is coming off. And so may initially use a good bit of hammerstone. Another tool that's also used is the antler billet. And both of these are moose. And this is a section where it's attached to the skull. It's really dense right there.
You could beat the shit out of somebody with that.
Yes, you can. And you can also tear a rock up pretty good.
Yeah,
as well.
that's a testament to its strength right there.
And you're literally using that to strike the stone, which throws a flake off of it,
Right.
which is thinning it and shaping it as it goes. And then when you get it down to the general shape and you're wanting to finish things out, you're going to use the deer antler tine and a little piece of leather in your hand. Try to hold this up here to where I can see it. And I'm normally doing it way down here, which no one could see.
I mean, I can adjust. Where's that secondary
Well,
camera?
in pressure flaking, I can still do it up here where we're literally just taking that deer antler, I'm pressing in and down, and you can see the small flakes coming off of there, and to throw that. The lighting is great for the camera. It's not real good for flint knapping because I need it back here so I can see what I'm doing. But you can see the flakes as they're coming off right there, and that is both thinning and shaping the point as we go. Some of them fell on the floor there, but
That is all good.
you can still work that edge. And when you throw a flake, that sharpens that edge. But if you want another flake off that same edge, you have to strengthen it. You do that by rubbing it with that stone there, and it's going to strengthen that edge so you can then come back and throw another flake right in there. So this is a far cry from what I was doing back in the 60s. Because this is how they were actually chipping the stone. It was using the deer antler and the hammer stone to shape that up.
So when you get towards the tip, it gets really. You have to be really careful, I'm guessing,
Right.
because you can just ruin the whole thing.
Well, you know, you can, and your biggest problem when you get to the pressure flaking stage, as it gets really, really thin, of course, it's weaker.
All right.
And so what can happen when you do that, if when you're holding it in your hand, you've got this little hollow here.
Right.
And so you can literally bend the stone and break it in half so that That's one of the reasons for the leather. It kind of smooths that out a little bit. It also protects your hand from these razor sharp flakes that are coming off. And people think I'm joking when I'm talking about this, but this
I mean, that's
little,
glass, basically.
well, and this stone right here I'm sitting in, which is a natural volcanic glass, produces the sharpest edge known to man. Checked under 10,000 power electron microscope, this can be up to 500 times sharper than the finest surgeon's scalpel we can produce today. Still can't even come close to how sharp this stone can be.
Wow.
So when I'm doing demos,
So you get a chunk of that in your eye, you're done.
or anywhere else. And you know, again, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And if you look in my napping bag, yes, there's a little box of Band-Aids in there. Because chances are you end up with a little cut on your finger. The beauty of it is so sharp and it cuts so clean that it heals very rapidly.
Right.
And just apply a little pressure to it and it'll quit bleeding a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely a hop, skip, and a jump away from these two little pieces of bone in the.
Yeah.
Could you, with your experience now, you could do it with those?
To a certain degree, it's still very limited.
Yeah.
You would have to use it between your legs. You would have to apply the pressure with your legs because they're too short. You have no leverage
Right.
on those. Normally, I would hold this. If I really want to throw a pressure flake a long ways, I would take this down between my legs. And I'm holding it up against one leg with this hand, and this guy's up against this leg. And when I go to apply the pressure, I'm literally squeezing my legs to apply the pressure
Right.
because my legs are 5 times stronger than my arms are.
Right.
So,
So they swindled you on those.
no, they got me interested.
They lit a fire in
They
you.
got me interested, and it went from there.
They lit a fire in you. It did its purpose.
That it did.
So, I mean, what you teach out there's just so many different skills, right? I'm sure you don't teach anywhere close to what you actually could teach.
Well,
you're
You know,
constrained with time.
I've been teaching for a long time, and each director that I've had at the park is different. And they have different ideas of what should be done or not done. Some wanted me to teach, some didn't want me to teach. When they didn't want me to teach, then places outside the park would hire me in to teach, and that's fine. But the last one that just recently left this past year not only wanted me to teach more classes, he wanted me to teach many more classes. Well, so at these shows that I do, I wrote a list of different classes I taught over the years, and I put it out there. What would you like to learn? Well, my problem was the public checked everything. And my comment was, I'm not going to live that long to teach all this stuff again and whatnot. So I started this traditional skills gathering at the park.
Right. I don't know if they can see that.
Yeah,
The focus on this is so rough.
Yeah, it's December 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Oh, you can't see that. Yeah.
Okay.
I tried it with this camera earlier, and the focus on it was just so rough. Like, you can't see.
And I'm not the only instructor. I bring in 10 or 12 different instructors from around, and we're teaching many different classes. One of the favorites is fire by friction, literally taking 2 sticks and starting fire. And it's one thing seeing this stuff done on TV, but to be able to do it consistently, regardless of what the weather conditions are, with many, many different types of species of wood, is a confidence builder.
The fact that somebody can just toss you in the woods and you'd be completely fine and comfortable, and you can just do whatever the hell you want. You're like, well, I just built a place to live for a little while. It's going to keep me out of the rain, and I've got a fire going. And if somebody starts anything, I just built something that I can stab the shit out of them with. And
Well, just for instance, in producing this arrow, okay, you've got your antler tools and your hammerstone to produce the stone point. But then you have to attach it to a shaft for your arrow. What you see here, everybody would look at and say, oh, that's bamboo. And I'm not going to argue that. It is a bamboo, but the only bamboo native to North America is actually something the Native Americans refer to as river cane, very popular here in the Southeast, which is the only place it grew. So you're going to have to get this, and I don't care how straight it looks, it is not. So now you got to know how to build a fire so that you can have a fire to heat the cane so you can now straighten the cane to make a straight arrow shaft.
Right.
All right, you need to tie this on, so you've got to cut a notch in it. And the technique that works best for river cane is to have a small stone drill that drills into it, and then you're going to pop out the sections for it to fit in there. And you have to glue it in there. You see the little black up against there like that. That's pine pitch glue. So we're going to now cut through the bark of the pine tree, take the sap out, which has lots of turpentine in it. But too much turpentine, it just stays gooey all the time.
Right.
You've been stuck with pine sap. So now we need to heat this pine sap to burn off some of the pine pitch. Oh, now we need a container. So you got to know how to make pottery. And
So it all just kind of
dig the
works into
clay
itself.
and build a little pot that's properly fired. So now you can heat your pine pitch, burn off some of that turpentine, take some charcoal out of the fire that you've already had going, grind that up into a fine powder to mix that up to produce your pine pitch glue that sticks the arrow in there. And then the material that you tie it with is sinew. And what sinew is the tendon off the back strap of the deer, or tendons in the legs and whatnot. This is off the back strap of the deer.
It really sounds like a piece of corn husk or something.
And it's just dried out sinew and tendon there. You scrape the meat and fat off of it. When it dries, that's what you end up with. And you can just take this and pull off little small sections of it like that. Scrape it down. That's way too thick.
So now that actually makes a lot more sense whenever, they used to mention that the Native Americans used every single bit of it.
Every single
Because
part.
all of it was used for something.
For something. You're exactly right. And it didn't matter whether it was buffalo or deer or whatnot. But even that little old tiny string, and a little waste pieces like I just took off there, that's not thrown away either.
Right.
You can take this, you can simmer this in water and produce a hide glue that is so strong that literally they've done experiments where you pour it in a Pyrex dish. Anybody that knows what Pyrex is, it's the one glass container you dropped on the floor and it bounced 3 times and never cracked or broke. That's Pyrex. Incredibly tough glass that's been extremely tempered. And but you can make glue by simmering this. A lot of the books will tell you to boil it. Don't boil it. It'll make glue, but it'll be weak. But anyway, to tie that on, you're going to strip this out as thin as possible. You're going to wet it in your mouth. And when you tie that point on, it stretches, and when it gets wet, it forms its own glue. You don't even tie a knot into it. You just wrap it around there and take your thumb, press it down in there, and press that in. And then as it dries, it really shrinks and holds that on tighter than any string would. So, and then of course you're fletching and whatnot. So just to produce that arrow, if you do it completely primitively, you need to know how to flint knot. You need to know how to build fire. You need to know how to straighten that. You need to know how to make pottery, how to make your pitch glue, how to process the sinew from the animals, just to produce that one arrow.
Yeah, and then repeat it 15 times.
There you go. And one of the things we do at the traditional skills, because it's during the deer season, we will try to make arrangements to have a deer legally taken, and we will do a complete stone tool butchering of the animal and use virtually all of it. And we will cook the meat for the participants and whatnot. We'll take that hide and let's see, some folks may have seen people wearing something like that.
Right, like a big old poncho.
Yeah, and that is a shirt that I made in 1991. It's made from what's called brain tan buckskin. I took the deer primitively. The only thing added to the skin of the deer is the brains of the animal and smoke. There's no salt. There's no chemicals whatsoever.
The brain.
The brains of the animal. Every critters got enough brains to tan its own hide, except for the insects.
So there's something that's in the brain is needed, specifically the brain. Like you can't get it from like the liver or the.
The liver can actually help because they call it brain tanning, And I don't know who came up with that name because the brains don't actually tan the hide because to tan the hide means you're making a chemical change. All the brains are literally doing is they're adding oils and enzymes around the dermis fibers that are allowing you to break those dermis fibers apart from the glue. Remember, you make glue from sinew. Well,
Right.
you take rawhide, simmer it to produce that strong hide glue.
Mm-hmm.
That glue's holding those dermis fibers really tight. That's why rawhide is so thin and it's so tough and it's
Right.
so tight. Well, what the brains are doing is they're allowing that to lubricate those fibers, and then through a stretching process called breaking, you break it completely soft like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's
It doesn't
wild.
feel like leather. It feels like
Uh-huh.
a thick flannel cloth. And then the only problem is that glue is still here, which is water soluble. So it gets wet. The glue's going to pull back together. It's going to tighten it back up and stiffen it back up. So now you build your fire in a little hole in the ground. You take rotten, punky wood and put over the coals to produce lots of smoke. You smoke that, and the smoke, the wood formaldehydes of the wood smoke, literally break down the glue that's in the skin. So once it's thoroughly smoked, then you can make your shirt because it will never get stiff again.
Sounds weird, but it made me think about. I heard about some torture where people use hide and allow it to basically constrict on the people and kill them. Is that
Like they get hot and they sweat and
Yeah,
hides
one of the
and
things
stuff.
that were used out west was rawhide bindings for prisoners and put on wet. When they dry, of course, the rawhide's going to shrink just like the sinew will. Doesn't work real well in the southeast because we have this thing that's called humidity.
it's insanely high?
And so when you have 70% humidity as opposed to 20% humidity, things don't shrink nearly as much in that rawhide sinew.
Trying to see who. All right, going back to that. But you've never heard of anybody getting tortured with? As it dries, it kills them, strangles them, or not strangles them, but
Have not.
no. No, it's just.
I'm not saying it didn't
I'm not
happen,
weird
I
or
just
anything.
haven't
I've
heard of it.
definitely heard about it.
Yeah.
I don't know where I heard about it from, but it was probably movies. Probably something never actually happened. They just thought, "Hey, this is a great idea. We should do this."
Well, you know, talking about that, one of the problems I run into when I'm doing these demos and I'm showing how to chip the stone with the tools and all, somebody in the crowd invariably comes up with the story of actually the way they did it was they heated the stone, they took a piece of straw, dipped it in water, and put a drop of water on the heated stone and it'd pop off a flake. Well, the way this story got started was they interviewed some native people on the reservations around the turn of the 1900s. They quit making stone tools long before
Right.
that. They were using guns 100, 200 years before that and steel knives and whatnot. And this guy probably knew what would happen if you did this and told them that story, and has been chuckling ever since because the silica stone will not take what's called thermal shock. If you get it really hot, if you get this beer glass really, really hot and put cold water in it, what's going to happen?
It's gonna crack.
It's going to crack and shatter and whatnot.
Right.
It might even pop. You put a silica stone in a fire, in an open fire where there's a breeze blowing, and you heat it up, and that breeze blows, you're going to get chunks of flint popping off of there. Remember how sharp this stuff
Yeah.
was? And so you got these little razor blades flying through the air. Make sure your insurance is paid up really well because it's not a good thing to do.
So there's no merit to that. It literally was just somebody. It was some Native American just talking shit.
And the thing is that they literally put a solid chapter in the book, the original book on Tarzan, about how he made his knife that way. And I've even had people tell me that and claim that they've seen someone do it. You know, I don't want to call them a liar, so I just grin and say, "Well, that's interesting." And anybody else have a question?
You get it every time. He was so ready when I asked him about the flint earlier. He had this spiel of all the different stones, all the different varitions of it, So quick with it. I'm just guessing it's just years and years.
Flint,
Of,
Sherman, City, Jasper, Agate, Quartz, Lake, Rhode Island, Rebecca Lake, Dayside, Archer Lake, Salt Lake City, and that's just a few of them.
that's just to name a few. I brought the microphone in so you guys can catch that a little closer.
I've never said that before.
It's his first time. We can go for a praline amber. We can go for a raspberry, pineapple, lime, and vanilla sour ale.
Raspberry, that's fruit, right?
Yep.
Don't you make wine with fruit?
Yeah, it's gozas are literally on the precipice of wine. Like, if anybody's a wine fan, they usually like gozas. Usually.
I sure do like pecans.
Okay. Heard. Heard. Make sure I got water in that one. So, you have two of these flyers right here. So I can't read them out to the people, or I can't really show them
Yep.
what's on them, but we can kind of let them know what's
Yep.
going on. So anybody who's local, they can actually go to it.
What the traditional skills gathering is, and that's December 6th, 7th, and 8th. This isn't, quote, an event open to the public. It is an event where you sign up. You're going to come in. You can set up camp on Thursday night. You'll have instructors teaching classes all day Friday, all day Saturday, half a day Sunday. We're going to feed you breakfast. We're going to feed you lunch. You're on your own for supper. And there'll be many, many different primitive skills classes offered by several different instructors around. The least, years of experience on any of my instructors is 20 years experience doing it. So these aren't fly-by-night.
Right. These aren't some
Yeah.
YouTube taught trained guys.
That's
These are
right.
some real deal.
These guys have been doing it for a long while. They know what they're doing, both the ladies and the men. So,
So everything from, like you said, like what, basket weaving?
basket weaving and pottery. I bring in a blacksmith, and for those that want to learn that, but we'll always do fire by friction and flint knapping, usually bow making, arrow making, maybe some edible medicinal plants, some shelter building.
And that's this one?
That is ours, the traditional skills.
That's probably going to be on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, isn't it?
It is a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
My
It
heart. I work every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The only days I work at the restaurant is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Now, the other flyer that I brought is on the Frontier Festival, which is the second weekend in January. That's the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And we started this one in 1993. And it's been going ever since. It's a pre-1840 black powder rendezvous. All the participants are basically volunteer demonstrators. They come dressed and camped pre-1840. And they just come and have a lot of fun. They have different projects going on. Ladies will be spinning wool, weaving. They may be cooking on the fire with your Dutch ovens, cast iron Dutch ovens and whatnot. We do a black powder rifle shoot. We do tomahawk throw, which is so much fun because so many of us, we throw a tomahawk, one weekend out of the year.
Yeah.
And so you get out there and you practice and you you got it, you nailing it without any trouble. Then when it comes to the competition, you can't hit anything. So, and this isn't just simply like you see at the local place that recently opened up where you throw one revolution and stick it. No, we do 1.5 revolution. We do 1.5 revolution backwards where it sticks upside down. We make blindfold you and have you throw it. We may make you do 2 revolutions. Make you throw it underhanded. We do it different ways to really make it a little bit more interesting.
Challenge these guys.
There you go.
Sounds like that board game Dungeon Fighter, where as you play the game, they increase the difficulty of throwing the dice. Like you might have to throw it from under your leg or from laying down on the floor.
There you go. And we'll usually have some characters show up there. Anyone that watches the old National Geographic show, Live Free or Die, one of my old friends, Colbert Sturgeon, comes by to visit usually most every year. And he's always a big hit because Colbert is a character.
He's a character.
He is a character.
Where do his skills lie?
He lives down in the swamp off grid down there on the Little River. actually in Brooks County, right there on the Lowndes County line. And quite often Colbert will come and grace us with his presence and show us what's going on. What we have
You said
here,
where do his skills lie?
his skills lie in being able to live off of nothing.
Really? Just
Yes.
living in the swamp,
Yes.
off of the grid.
Yeah.
This is an American amber red ale. It is 5.2, so a little on the lighter side. It says it's from Georgia too, or Georgia as well. It doesn't actually say where. I hate that it doesn't do that. Is it Decatur? No.
You know, I've
It's
had
coastal.
a pecan beer,
Savannah.
Savannah, right on.
before that had a sweetness to it that I didn't care for, but this one is really good.
See if you guys want to catch a gander of that. I'm going to dive into that. Can you taste the pecans at all?
Yeah.
I had a really good, oh, it's really light.
Yes, it is light.
I had a really good pecan stout. I think, no, it was a Doppelbock at that German restaurant outside of Stone Mountain.
Stone Mountain, I know right
Yeah,
where you're
that
at.
place was so good.
Yeah,
They had like
we
small
usually
batch.
eat there. Yep. Yep. We usually eat there each time.
Yeah, I hate that they have these events on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but I get it. You know, most people are off on those days, so it seems like it's the best time to do it.
Could you hand me the largest bow? That first one. There you go. Right.
Oh boy.
Very first one. There you go.
He's getting tired of you. He's going to take you out. Tired of your shit.
What I wanted to show you on this bow, this is my personal hunting bow. This guy's been around for about 30 years. It's made of hickory, and it has a lot more wood than it's needed. It's what's called an overbuilt bow. And but the main reason I wanted to bring this thing over here to show you is the string on it. That string is made from sinew.
Right, just twist it, wind it up, I guess.
And that's what we're about to do with some materials over there. But I wanted to show you that. That's a sinew bowstring, and incredibly strong, incredibly tough. And I think this is the third sinew bowstring I've had on it, and this thing's probably close to 30 years old.
Yeah, I like how wide the
it's
size.
I tell you what, while we're on bows, we can bring you others just to show the difference in all of them. That is one very wide limb, very flat.
And the other one's even wider, but it's a little on the short bow
Yeah.
side.
Now, the one that I just had, that would not be uncommon to see around the Mississippi, Missouri River, but still in the eastern part of the country.
Right.
Hickory was the most common wood used, but different groups had different preferences according to what was available to them. Now, this bow, it's much shorter, it has very highly reflexed tips on it, very wide, and it also has a sinew backing. That's a birch bark handle. That is the bark of the birch tree that is wrapped around there and hide glued in. And there are layers of the sinew that are literally glued to the back of the bow. Because when you pull a bowstring,
Right.
and that wood bends, the wood on the back is under tension. It's being pulled apart. The wood on the belly is under compression.
Right.
Sinew has greater tensile strength than any wood. So to make a powerful bow that was this short, if you can back it with sinew, and the bow the wood will hang in there, won't bust on
Right.
you. Whereas maybe if you made one this powerful that was this short without the sinew, it may not hold together. So that was what they were making in, say, Northern California, Oregon, coastal Oregon, and Washington was this style here.
May use that birch sometimes for like knife handles and stuff, right?
Knife handles, I'd make baskets with birch bark. Now, the only birch that we have down here, this far south, is river birch. It doesn't function the same as a lot of the others. It works okay, but your white birches, your gray birches, your some of the others that are further north, your paper birch and all, function much better for a lot of those things. Same thing, they're using birch bark canoes out of it.
Okay.
but we don't have that kind of birch down here.
I've seen them with the handles. Instead of doing it around or have like a solid piece, or not with the birch, but I guess you could have a solid piece. But they have it in stacks, so it's almost like little coins. They have them in stacks, and they have it centered like tang.
Yes. Yes.
And they'll basically just once they get it all on there and glued, they'll carve it.
Yeah, yeah. I wished I had brought some of my poplar bark baskets also. It's a very unique style of basket, very easy to make. And just so many different things and different ways you can use the bark of the trees as well. On this one, this is very simple, plain, and it's not finished. I'm still working on it. I still got to have my pencil lines in the handle area. The tillering is about done. Tillering is making both limbs bend evenly and equally.
Something like this
And-
affected.
And no, that's just one of the problems that, say, a professional woodworker would have with making primitive bows
Right.
is they want to put it on a table saw, they want to put it on a bandsaw, and they want to cut it perfectly straight.
Yeah, they want everything to be
Well,
perfect.
this is when you want to split the wood, and this is where there was probably a knot right there.
Right.
And so the wood grain grew around that knot. Well, if you cut that completely straight there, hey, it's going to break right there.
Right. That's your point of weakness.
Because this is the longitudinal grain of the wood, and you stick with it. That's why you can see what are called snake bows, where the wood is all snaky going up
Right.
and down here. You split the wood, you follow the longitudinal grain of the wood. But
You just let it do what it do.
as simple as this bow looks, this is the typical bow that you would have found throughout most of the East. The widest part is in the handle. It's called a D bow. This one is a Cherokee style, and it's mainly determined by these little triangular shaped tips
Right.
on there. Very simple bow. Don't sell it short. Very effective, and whatnot. Nothing fancy about it. And
Like you said, he's still working on this one.
got a little bit more.
Still got
work
some
to do.
pencil lines and
Yeah.
stuff in there.
Yeah. But it won't be long. I'll finish it up this week. While nothing's
Sinew as
done.
well?
Yeah, we'll do a sinew.
No, I'm saying, is that sinew
no,
on there as
that
well?
one, that one is actually artificial sinew. I needed to do something really quick and simple to tiller it out, so I use an artificial sinew, whereas the other one had real sinew.
Right.
Big difference.
There was dead animal on that one and
Yeah.
not so much on
Yeah.
that one.
All right. Now, how to make that cordage. Now, besides the sinew that I brought some other materials to show you. This is the inner bark of tulip poplar. This is a dried leaf of the yucca plant. And this is a stalk of a weed called dogbane. All three of these, well actually all four of these when you include the sinew, will make excellent cordage. Probably the quickest and easiest is this, going to be this piece of the fibers from the yucca leaf. And in making any cordage, what we've done is we've scraped away all the green material that's on it, and we stripped off where it's down to just the fibers in the leaf, and we use what's called a reverse wrap twist to produce a 2-ply cordage, very simple cordage. What you want to do is get these two bundles about the same diameter. And so we're going to start it right here. And let's see if we can show that. Is that camera picking that
Yeah,
up? Okay.
it's this one right here.
What we're going to do is I'm going to spin one that way and pull it down. Spin it away, pull it down. And by spinning in one direction and pulling it in the other direction, it locks on itself. So you're taking material that the individual fibers are fairly weak, and you're spinning these guys together that the end result produces very strong cordage.
So all three of these are the same thing, yes?
That's all the
It's just
fibers
split and
from
braided.
a leaf of the yucca plant.
Which is from around here?
Oh yeah, you've got several different species.
Probably
of it.
pass it all the time, don't ever think anything about it.
If you run into it, you will remember it because on the ends of the leaf there's a sharp spine. and it sends a stalk up out of there that produces a flower. Well, when the stalk first comes up, you can cut it and boil it and cook it like asparagus and eat it. You can let it grow on up, produce flowers. The flowers are edible. Take the stem off. The stem is bitter. Once the flower stalk dries, that's what I use mainly around this location for starting fire by friction, my hand drill, my bow drill, even fire saw with that. The leaves have incredibly strong fibers for producing very strong cordage, and the roots have saponins in it which chop it up, mix it with water, and it'll produce a light lather for soap. Wash your hair with it, wash your body with it. This is not the yucca that you see, the yucca root in grocery stores. The yucca root you see in grocery stores spelled Y-U-C-A, and it's actually cassava. Do not eat yucca, Y-U-C-C-A root. There's even a site on the internet that says you can. They even call the species out. They say it's Yucca filamentosa, which is the correct name for the majority of the species that grow here. If you eat yucca root here, I'll guarantee you will become very, very acquainted with your bathroom for quite some time. And you won't do it twice.
So it's a laxative.
Very much so.
If you guys, need to drop weight, you wrestlers out there, you bodybuilders, chew on some yucca, you'll go cucka.
But, from stripping the fibers of the sinew from the deer, taking the fibers from the leaf of yucca, to retting the bark by taking a log of tulip poplar or many, many other species and putting it in water and letting it sit for a month. It depends upon the weather. You can strip out the inner bark of the tree, and this bark can be twisted up just like you saw me do with that tulip poplar. With the yucca leaf. This is tulip poplar bark, and once again, it's not as strong. The yucca is stronger than this, but and you got to keep in mind their world was tied together. They didn't have nails and screws and all that, bolts. So everything was tied together. Their homes were lashed together, and they used whatever was available in their area. It's the adaptation of the natural resources in the area that has kept me interested in primitive technologies.
I like that. Everything around you can be used for something.
Absolutely. It's just simply a matter of knowing what you're looking for. Where does it grow? Does it grow in dry soils, wet soils? Does it grow in the sun, the shade? What time of the year do you go to gather it? How do you process it? Because how you process tulip poplar bark is different from yucca leaf, and it's different from trying to process this dog bang, which produces incredibly strong fibers. I'm just going to lightly scrape the outside edge of this. And this is just a weed that grows on the side of the road. It's called dog bane. The old name for it was wolf's bane. It's actually poisonous. And it looks real similar to milkweed, which is also another good cordage plant. But
hollow?
It's hollow, and you're literally going to just crush the stem, and it'll break into 4 even parts all the way down. You crush that all the way down. The reason I'm showing you this is we're looking at 4 different materials to produce cordage, which was so important, and yet they are 4 different methods for processing the same thing. Okay, and it's woody on the inside. I've got a quarter of it right there, and we can pull that off. What we want is that outside fiber right there. That's where we're going to make our cordage from. And the Paiute people who lived in southern Nevada, out there in the desert regions and whatnot, in most native traditions, when a man died, all of his belongings were buried with him. Well, among the Paiute, the one thing that was never buried with someone was a huge rabbit net. They would catch rabbits in the sagebrush bottomlands along the creeks in the deserts, creeks and rivers in the desert, and these rabbit nets would be as much as 300 yards long and 4 foot high.
So it's just too valuable to kind of
They
toss in the
were way
grate.
too valuable. That was generations of work being done. You were constantly making repairs. You were constantly adding on to it, and making it longer and longer and longer. And so we'll just go ahead and get with what we got. And you can just lightly get that out.
Just roll it.
Well, what it is you've got a little outside skin on it, and which will actually make it a little bit weaker, so you can just rub it in your hands and get rid of that, and then we go right back in to that reverse wrap 2-ply twist. Dog bane is so strong. Dog bane is what I prefer to use for small leaders, for what's called a gorge hook, for drop lines on a trot line for catfish, because you can make really, really small cordage on it, and yet it's still quite strong. Your yucca fibers, even though they're strong, they're not as strong as dog bane, and they're also much coarser, whereas your dog bane, you can make it incredibly, incredibly fine and very, very tough.
Yeah, that was awesome. If you are a primitive assassin and you need some kind of cordage to take somebody out, you go with
Don't know that they ever used them as garrots.
you go with the wolf's bane, and you will get the job done. So there's a lot of primitive skills. Did like living off the local fauna or the food, like local.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about what plant was it? About it being bitter at the stalks and
That was the flower of the yucca. The
Right.
stem of the flower is bitter, so you want to pull that off. You know, and
so
and,
like learning to live off of what's local. Like you could probably walk through the woods and just know exactly what all is.
and it's as a kid when I found my first quote arrowhead. What an arrowhead is! That was a spear point. Sorry, we have a rattlesnake hollering at me. And sorry, I saw the text. It's kind of my mind diverted.
You said when you found your first arrowhead.
Yeah,
We're
you
talking
know,
about travel, like
that's what got me interested. But what has kept me interested all these years is the incredible adaptation of mankind.
Right.
You stop and you think about it. People lived in the frozen Arctic. They lived in the dry desert. They
Right.
lived in swamps, grasslands, woodlands of all sorts, tropical rainforest. And yet we're all just people. I don't care what color our skin is. I don't care what our hair color or texture is. The clothing we wear, the houses we build, the items we use are based upon the natural resources that are available and the ability of man to adapt to whatever is available to get to the same needs that we all have to have.
Right.
Is what has kept me interested in primitive technologies. In 1989, we formed a group called the Society of Primitive Technology. We literally explored every primitive people throughout the world and how they adapted to their natural resources. And that is what's kept me interested in what I love sharing with people. When you look at the Calusa people in South Florida, they didn't have stone to chop down a tree, but they made their living from the ocean.
right.
They didn't have any stone to make an axe. So what they used were whelk shells, lightning whelk shells. Most people call them conch, but they're actually lightning whelks.
Yeah.
And they would make a tool called an adze blade and use that to chop down a tree, hollow out the tree to make their canoes, make their living off
Right.
the ocean. They adapted to what available resources were.
When I was in Alaska, there's a lot of stuff with ivory and baleen,
Yeah,
like whale baleen.
yeah.
Like just the locals using pieces of whales and using, they have the walrus tusks to
Yes.
make the ivory, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And when I was in England, I well, actually, I did it both in England and Canada. So when I was in England, I was close to Dover, like close to the cliffs of Dover, and I was traveling with a lady who was really, really into like local plants and what all they're both medicinal and
Yeah.
like just eating them and what they do. So just traveling around with her and her picking things up and just munching and knowing that like I could use this for this, or I can grow this into a tea, or this will make me sick, or this is And the same thing with the guys in Canada. I met some real cool people when I was in Ireland. They're from Canada. So when I planned a trip to go see them in Canada and we hiked around a bit, they're just going around just picking mushrooms and just eating them. And I'm like, you aren't worried about that? And they're like, oh no. And they're just eating all kinds of plants. Everything, they're walking around just grabbing stuff and eating it because they already know what all's fine to eat and what isn't. I just thought that was super cool.
Yeah. And you better know what you're picking if you're going to be eating or using for medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
And that's a whole subject in and of itself.
I think they were doing chanterelles.
Yeah.
They're just grabbing them up and eating them.
Chanterelles are great, and we have lots of them around here.
Do we?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's big money right there.
Well, you can't make money when you can't get them out of your frying pan.
Oh yeah, true. True. Yeah, I know that they were when it hit around the season, they'd go out. People would be with big baskets and just tossing them all in there and selling them.
Yeah.
Big money.
It was good. Yeah.
So we're gonna hop on to our next beer.
Well,
I know it's getting around that time. I know you got your phone
yeah,
call.
it's getting about that time. We can try another taste. Let me grab that. But that old man here's got to get up in the morning.
It's all good. I know you got a big event going on. Anybody who wants to head out towards Stone Mountain can probably check it out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And the next big event that comes up is this one, December 6th. This is about a month away.
Yeah, that's right. December 6th, 7th, and 8th.
December 6th, 7th, and 8th. And they can probably just go online and buy tickets and stuff like that.
On Cheehaw's website, yes.
And go to cheehaw.org. That's CHEHAW.org. And you can get the tickets for it. Yeah, I mean, you can learn anything you want to learn. I'm going to show you a picture of that so you actually could see it. There's Michael holding it for it. Thank you, sir. And just went flaccid there. You can't really tell what's going on. Huh? You're leaving? Okay. I'll see when you get home. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in this picture. I mean, everything from... So people at this can learn... People who go here can learn any of this stuff.
Yes.
And this is a three-day event. Everything from basket weaving to tanning hides to flint napping,
Yep.
pottery. I mean, you're taking in so much information. I mean, it's wild. I wanted to go to it last time. I'm kind of bummed I couldn't. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's when I make all my money.
You know, this time of year, it's not unusual for people to come down for flu.
Oh yeah, no, I've never called out of work in my life ever.
You're a good man.
I'm
You're
35. I've never called out of
You're
work.
a good man.
I just feel like if I'm scheduled to work, I'm gonna work.
There you go.
But yeah, guys, thanks for coming on. I wish we could have stayed on a little bit longer, but because there's so much to talk about. I mean, it's got crazy amounts of skills. Let me switch to another camera. Yeah. So he's got crazy amounts of skills. We had 3 more beer left over. I feel like you probably wouldn't have liked either one of these. So you were talking about this one earlier about it being close to a wine. I might just go home and drink that one. This is good for shower beers.
Ah.
So people drink beer in the shower. They want something light and refreshing. So if they're getting ready to go off to work.
And what's that one?
Orpheus made it. It's called Rainbow Serpent. It's raspberry, pineapple, lime, and vanilla sour.
Sounds like one my wife might like.
No, they're tasty.
Yeah.
So I usually ask people every time they come on the show, and we're getting ready to wrap up, but I always ask this question. If you could learn any skill, completely all is available to you. If you could learn any skill, something you always want to learn, whether it's a new language or like violin or glass blowing, whatever. You might already know glass blowing, but you can learn whatever. What would you want to learn? Because this is a skill show.
Okay. There's a lot of skills that I have had a lot of interest in that I have avoided on purpose because I have enough hobbies now.
It's fair. Most time when I ask like masters,
I
you know,
don't have
or somebody
time.
who's focused really into their thing, like Big Jim, you know, I asked him, I was like, if you can learn anything, he's like, well, if I learn anything, it just takes away from what puts like food on my table. So
Yeah.
he's like, I would just keep doing what I'm doing. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. As a younger person, never ever hold yourself back. But at a certain point in time of your life, you have to appreciate what you can still do.
Right.
One of the things that I take great pride in is being able to do a fire with hand drill. Well, 20 years ago, it was a piece of cake. I could do hand drill usually a whole lot faster than your very, very best could do bow drill, which is
It's got like a
easy.
little hole or like a little divot with a little moss, right?
You don't need that. Basically, what's going on in any fire, on a friction fire like that, where you're spinning it, will be it hand drill, pump drill, bow drill, is you're creating heat by friction, and at the same time you're grinding off wood dust from the tip of the drill. The drill's getting shorter, and you're grinding off wood dust from your fireboard. The hole's getting deeper. So once you get the hole started, you have to cut a notch in there, because without the notch, all that wood dust that you're grinding off is going everywhere, and you want to collect it. So you cut a notch in it, and that gives an opening to allow that wood dust to fall out. Then the trick is to produce enough heat, and we're talking 800 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, it's hot as hell.
To reach the ignition temperature of that wood dust to create a little ember. Doesn't produce flame, it creates a little ember
so you
like
put it
the
on.
end of a cigarette.
Right.
And now you're going to take that ember that you created and put that into something light and dry and fluffy, your tinder bundle.
Right.
And then blow that into a flame.
Yeah, we actually would have showed that to you. He wanted to set fire to this place, but I'm using. I have a good friend that's letting me use this while he's gone. So there's lots of wood, and I am confident in his ability. If this was my place, yeah, please go ahead and start a fire. But it's not my place, so I was like, Lewis would lose his mind if he even knew I started a fire in here. So
And we got a fire alarm right there too.
I'm sure it would be super controlled. He's a skilled fireman.
Smoke is the concern. I'm not worried about flaming the loose,
Right,
but
right.
smoke would cause a problem. Yes.
But yeah, so thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
I know this wasn't like the most professional thing ever. This is literally just me wanting to get together with some cool people and
That's
talk
right.
about what I do and get this out to some people who might not know who you are locally.
Appreciate the opportunity.
And I'd love to have you on again, man. I'd love to actually go out there with the camera and when you're having one of these events,
Sure.
and like kind of record what you do and
Maybe
actually
we
just
do
like, I'm pumped. And actually in the future I'm going to have a video, so I'll record beforehand, and then I'll have that video playing here in the live stream while we're live streaming, so you can like do commentary and be like, oh yeah, this is so on and so forth.
All right.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.